We do want to start right now with the data that we're talking about, the results from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. That is the nation's report card, and it shows this dramatic, really sobering decline in math and reading scores. We're talking about the nation's fourth graders and our country's eighth graders right now. Let's take a look at this data to see what it shows. These are the pandemic-related disruptions and the damage it caused to our students' ability to learn. So taking a look here at how those scores fell. So what these numbers show here is the percentage of students performing below basic level. So for fourth graders, 25% in math. In eighth grade, 38%. For reading, coming in at 37% below the basic level, and in reading for eighth graders, 30% are below that level. And those are numbers, Ashley, that we're seeing climb. More kids are dropping below basic.
It is truly devastating. I think, although not surprising, we've had a really tumultuous few years. I think this was a test that our education system just wasn't ready for, right? The COVID interruption plus transitions in all different 50 states, everyone responded so differently. I think I think people need to have this frame of reference. NAEP sets a proficiency level higher than some states. So we have multiple indicators on what school leaders can do right now with this information. And so some states, they might have seen on their own assessments that they had gains, but they still dropped in NAEP. The whole reason we have NAEP is so that we can see we can understand how are people doing across the country, across all 50 states, because ultimately that funding does come at the federal level to all 50 states. And so we do need this information. I think what jumps out at me the most is that it's not surprising math is further behind. Math spirals, it builds on each other. So if you were in those grades and missed the foundation of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, you can't keep going. And same thing with reading. Unfortunately, reading at home is sometimes for some families and some communities much easier than math at home. And so if you missed out on those phonics, we're still seeing those drops, and that's where we got to focus now.
Yeah, and Marissa, I take a look specifically for you at those eighth graders, because they're going to be going into high school, and if they're below those basic levels in math and in reading, how are they going to be successful as they prepare for their journey into college?
Absolutely, and that's what we're seeing. As Ashley said, there were so many gaps in education. In fact, during COVID, some introductory algebra skills that students typically learn in 7th or 8th grade, those foundational skills don't exist, so that teachers now in algebra freshman year of high school are trying to build foundational skills, having a hard time moving or advancing in the curriculum, which does make it much harder when you get to an SAT or an ACT that has both Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 on the test.
All right, we do know parents are concerned about learning recovery, so we spoke with Tafsir Cosby from the National Parents Union.
The National Parents Union is calling for increased communication for parents so they can know how their students are doing. State and federal agencies, increased action and accountability, professional development for curriculum and teaching, and increased funding for tutoring and extended learning.
And I know, Ashley, that's one of the things you're passionate about.
I am. So coming from the classroom, knowing I had to, serve 100 eighth graders in ELA, the task is daunting. And often, there will always be students that you cannot support nearly enough based on what they need. So I can't imagine trying to do that now. When it comes to high dosage tutoring, you need at least multiple times during a week, an hour each of those times. So minimum 2 hours a week. It's most beneficial. The research shows ELA or literacy for the lower grades in that K2 span. For math, actually, it's more beneficial in the 3 to 5 span if you're going to focus on elementary. And just like Marissa was saying, high dosage tutoring for algebra right now is probably the best thing any middle school or programming supporting middle school can start to do, because again, the cascading effects of not having those foundations as you advance towards up the math chain is really scary. So for us in New Jersey, the tutoring core is statewide and focusing on K-5 and trying to partner with other providers that do middle school and high school, because all students need it right now.
We wanted to reach out to a superintendent and get their take on exactly what the schools are doing to affect change. We spoke to the assistant superintendent in South Huntington School District.
not seeing it only with students with disabilities, we're seeing it with general education students as well. Again, in every state across the United States. So what should schools be doing to address these challenges? They should be personalizing instruction. Individualized, differentiated instruction for all types of learners, both students with disabilities and general education populations, will allow for schools to really target the individual needs of learners. We cannot apply a Band-Aid solution and expect it to help everyone, but rather really need to think about the individual needs and strengths and areas of growth for every single learner in our schools.
Okay, so that was obviously Haley from iTutor talking about what she thinks really needs to happen, which kind of echoes what you were just saying, Ashley. But I do know that we do have that sound from the superintendent, so let's listen to what he's saying is happening inside of our schools.
Well, I think we've done a great job with addressing it through some of our academic intervention programs, through the use of ARP money, and bolstering academic programs, as well as lowering class sizes. But it's going to take a long time to get out of these learning gaps.
All right, so Marissa, let's talk about, the time it is going to take and really the investment in education that needs to happen, Marissa.
Absolutely. So I think it comes down to funding and making sure we're funding our public schools so that we can provide all these different types of interventions. In the school in which I work, we have a lot of skills classes. So they are content area support classes. So we have a content area Algebra 1 skills class built into our school day. We have it for geometry. We have it for Algebra 2, also for all of the sciences, for social studies, for English. This is what kids need. They need reinforcement of what they're being taught in the classroom. We need to continue to have helping periods after school where children can stay in school and meet with their teachers. We need to be keeping our libraries open so that students can stay in a safe environment like their schools to get their work done with access to teachers and faculty who are here to support them. All of that takes money. So the funding is incredibly important, and we need to be providing funding in addition for mental health, because so much of what's happening with our children these days is not just academic. It really comes down to their mental health and how they're feeling. Teaching executive functioning, teaching organizational skills, providing them with all these soft skills that they need to be successful, not only academically, but also in the workforce one day.
Right, and we do know, there's different ideas being floated out there, extending the hours, after school homework help, tutoring, summer enrichment programs. Let's listen to what the education secretary had to say after this report came out.
I think what we can do right now is make sure that we're utilizing the funds that we currently have. We have more money in education now than at any other point when as an educator for me. We need to make sure we're utilizing the funds for academic recovery, and we need to communicate with our families how we're using the dollars. So short term, that's what we need to do. But I'm calling on all leaders throughout the country to look at this as a call to action, to invest in education so that we don't go backwards. I'm confident, Brianna, that if we focus on our reading and math and on science, that we can lift our students' performance and we can make our education system the best in the world. I'm confident.
All right, so we want to make this, obviously a great space for children to learn, to grow, to thrive. But also, you have to think, Ashley, about the students that hear these, these numbers and then the effect that has on them as they're trying to perform their best.
You're exactly right. And that builds on exactly what Marissa said. The districts that are intentionally building space in the building so that you have the support, that time for getting those social check-ins, right? Whether it be a school counselor or additional supports, because that can come from a lot of different places. You could have mentors, you could leverage City Year. There's lots of ways that you can do that. I think some of the best teachers I've ever worked with do a great job of never making any one student feel like a low score on any assessment, formative or summative, is their own fault. And so the best educators aren't letting that happen right now with those students. And honestly, I don't think students are watching and being like, oh, I'm a fourth grader. Does that mean, like, they're not internalizing it at that level? But when we do take their assessments and we sit down with them and we talk with them about it, that's the foundational of like building the skill of goal setting, right? And that's actually really important as you grow up and mature and become your own independent adult. And if you don't ever learn how to set a goal or understand a setback or, make a new plan, you're going to react in the same ways as you mature. So it is important to have those conversations.
You know, but it is interesting to that point. So while your fourth or even your eighth grader, you know, might not, I'm going to say, internalize that grade, if you take a look at the ACT scores that we're seeing right now, you know, these are high school students, and these grades are not fantastic. ACT scores reveal a decline in preparedness for college level work. The average composite score was a 19.8 out of 36. This is the first year since 1991 that the average score was below 20. It is the lowest average in more than 30 years. We're going to talk about the specific scores that we're seeing in the tri-state. Also, if you want to take a look at the data from the nation's report card, we have it up for you on news12.com.